I just bought an illegal rental property. But what is an illegal rental property? Does it mean I'm going to go to jail? Is there something wrong with it? What is the difference between a legal unit versus a non-legal unit? We're going to talk about all that right now. What is going on, everybody? My name is Andrew, and today we're going to talk about legal versus non-legal rental properties. What is the difference? How do you manage them? What are some advantages, disadvantages about having them, and how do we go about leveraging them as real estate investors? So the first thing I want to say about illegal rental properties is that it's not illegal in the sense that you're going to go to jail if you own one. It just means that it's not conforming with respect to the bylaw, the zoning, or something about it isn't the way that it should be or ought to be. But it doesn't mean that it cannot be corrected and become legal later on. But I want to talk about these within the respect of how they're used, because illegal rental properties are actually very common. A lot of people who own property, in order to maximize the income potential of their properties, at some point hacked a property into multiple units and created multiple dwelling units within a property that wasn't supposed to have it. Now, what makes it illegal is a few things. One, the zoning may have not been changed or does not permit it to be used in this fashion. Two, it was not done according to the correct building codes or building standards. And three, as it pertains to bylaw coming in and having an issue with it, it's also a problem, and the reason why they enforce this is because really city infrastructure was designed to handle properties with a certain amount of people living in them. One of the first things I want to talk about here is how to identify non-legal rental units. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that if you come across a property that says it has 3 units in there and they're not bragging about how this is a legal 3-unit property, it's probably not a legal property. Now, sometimes what I like to do is I like to find properties that have not been yet legalized, because you can get them at a bit of a bargain. And if it's a stable enough property and the work is at least done properly, I can go in there, buy this property, and then slowly do the permits to get it converted into however many units that it is legally allowed to be. And it might be 2 units, 3 units, 4 units, depending on what is allowed. But let's just say I want to find a 3-unit apartment. If you're using the MLS, you may notice that there aren't a lot of really great search features to say, hey, I want to find something with 3 separate apartments. It has options like minimum price, max price, beds, baths, land size, all this fun stuff over here. But you see, what I really want is I want to identify that this property has multiple units in it. If I'm filtering for something like this, I'm going to use certain words. Now, if you are using a search engine that will allow you to filter against kitchens, if you put 3 kitchens as a requirement, that will imply, at least 99% of the time, that there are 3 rental units in that property. Now, MLS doesn't have necessarily all these filters for you to use. If you are using another realtor tools or certain other tools, you are able to filter this way, but you can filter by using certain keywords. Now, I look to use certain keywords like triplex or fourplex. This will identify multiple units in the property and will filter for you to find certain things. However, just remember that just because it's called a triplex does not mean it's legal, and you need to keep that in mind. Now, as you can see, a bunch of properties are going to pop up here, and these properties all have, as you can see, according to our filters, 3 bedrooms, and they'll have 3 bathrooms. Anything with less than 3 bathrooms is not going to be 3 separate units, so keep that in mind. And you can see that there's a big range between these properties, ranging all the way from, $650,000 going up to about a little over $1 million for 3 rental units. So when you read things like price to sell, legal non-conforming triplex in the desirable Sinclair area, okay, something I want to identify first of all when you're looking at these properties. When somebody says that it is legal non-conforming, what it's supposed to mean is that they are recognized by the city, but has been in some manner grandfathered in, meaning that the city is okay with it. Now, the problem I have with when you're filtering like this on the MLS is that people don't know necessarily that that is what that term means. So if you go and buy the property and then go get it appraised as 3 units, it might not necessarily come back with that appraisal as being legally recognized, even though they have this term here, legal non-conforming triplex. Remember, triplex is not a legal term. When people say legal non-conforming, they don't even know what that means, so you need to do your due diligence. But as you can see, there's a few things here that are written in that are really important to pay attention to. It says that it has a 2-bedroom, 1-bath unit that's been fully renovated, and it has another 2 units with 1 bed and 1 bath each. It says that there's potential for even an extra unit in the full basement with separate entrance. It says here that this property has 4 separate hydro meters, 2 parking spots, backyard patio, porch on the main. This property might actually have the legal potential for 4 units. It has 3 mailboxes. It says it has 4 separate hydro meters. Now, most of the time when we see 4 separate hydro meters, it also means that this place is legally recognized, because they're not going to install multiple hydro meters like this. So this property may be legal based off of what they're saying here. But now if we look at one of the other ones, let's look at this property right here. This property is in Hamilton. It's a solid brick building. It seems pretty sturdy. They're asking $649,000. If you're reading the description, it says things here like excellent triplex with lots of upside rent potential. Each unit has separate entrance. That's great. Feet away from LRT. Main floor unit, 1-bedroom unit. Second unit is comprised of 2 levels and has 3 bedrooms. Basement unit is a 1-bed. Currently includes 2 hydrometers. First thing I want to point out here is that hydrometers are not necessarily an indicator of the legal use. However, having 2 separate hydrometers may mean that the place is probably recognized as a legal duplex. And that's where we're identifying legal use, but it has 3 units in here. What is the upside and the downside of having that 3rd unit? It looks like probably what they did here was they just renovated the basement afterwards in order to get an extra income. It was probably not done with permits and it was probably not legally recognized. Is that a problem for me as a real estate investor? Not necessarily. Now let's look at the upside and compare that to the downside of buying a property like this. At $650,000, you're essentially buying a property like this roughly in and around the duplex price point. You're buying it with sort of like an extra suite to sweeten the deal. What this probably means is that the main floor, you can rent it out, no problem. The second floor with a 3rd, because it's 1 unit, you can rent that out, no problem. Now the 3rd unit is where the problem might happen. I did notice when looking at this that they did not have pictures of the basement, and a good question to ask the realtor is how high is the basement ceiling height? Now, if the basement has reasonable enough height, you have the potential to create a comfortable unit in there and you may be able to legalize it. But why, you might ask, would somebody even bother wanting to legalize their rental unit? Well, the thing to understand here is that when you go to finance this building, the downside is that the banks may only recognize the potential rental income of 2 units because those are the 2 that are legally recognized. These types of properties are essentially the way most real estate investors get into real estate. You can get them at a bargain of a price, and if you're a sweat equity type of person, you can really iron out all the kinks in these types of homes. If you don't know what cap rate is, you can check out one of our other videos, but you will find that the cap rate is more favorable on illegal rental units, places that are recognized for less than what they have. But again, when you have something like that, usually it requires a little more sweat equity to make these properties worth your while. So if you want to know more about how to evaluate these properties, how to find them, how to recognize them, and what to stay away from, make sure to get in touch with us. We have training programs all the time trying to teach you how to be the best real estate investor you can be. As always, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and I will see you on the next one.